Okay. Okay, so everybody welcome. This is the fourth class of going deeper into chapter 1 of Shari Yichud, of Reb Hillel's commentary. And last week, we finished talking about Chochmah and Bina. And this week, we're going to start to look at the topic of Daas. And just before we do that, I was looking at the calendar and it seems clear that next week is going to be our last class, because then the Sunday is too close to Rosh Hashanah, 3-day Yom Tov for everybody. So then we'll take a break over Tishrei and we'll come back on the first Sunday of November. But, we'll put out a notice before then. But it'll be, after the Chagim. Okay, Mila, is anything that you want to open with before we start reading?
Hi, everybody. And it's amazing. I mentioned this to Neria. It's amazing to see you actually coming to the classes, although it's been quite challenging to keep these ideas and really doing the work. But that shows your commitment and your desire to really connect to this work. And most importantly, I just want to remind everybody why we do this. It's about the expanding of the borders of Eretz Israel by expanding our brains and our hearts to really enclose all this material. Spiritually, we are connected with the land, and the more we do avodah samoichin, not only our forehead is going to expand, and frontal lobes are going to expand, but we're also physically going to expand the borders of Eretz Israel and the security. It's a promise of the Rebbe.
Mila, just reminds me that we, in the Parsha this week, it talked about a war, a Milchemet Rashut, and a war that is not obligatory. And I looked at some of the commentary, and basically this is a war that is not obligatory, is to expand the borders of Eretz Israel. To conquer Eretz Israel, to conquer the 7 nations, that's an obligatory war. And also, if there's an enemy that attacks you while you're in Israel, that's an obligatory war. But to do this work of expanding the borders is voluntary. And there are different rules that apply to it. And I thought, so that's also kol hakavod to everybody doing this Milchemet Rashut, that you're not obligated to do it, but it's this is the work that the Rebbe asked us to start to do. Okay, so before we do the actual text, I hope that people have read the text, and I'm assuming that you have. So we're going to start just with a visualization or meditation. And I'll explain it to you before, and then we'll just go into the meditation so that we experience the idea of Daas before we read about it. So in the text, he describes Daas as in the following way, and I'm going to ask you to think of a situation where you were completely immersed and engaged with a particular task, to the point that you didn't think about anything else at the time. You weren't checking your phone, and you weren't checking your emails, and you weren't looking in the fridge. You were just completely immersed in what you were doing. And to the point that you also almost forgot about yourself. You just almost didn't have a sense of self. You were so engaged in what you were doing. And what would be the third thing? That you could just spend hours doing what you were doing. So I want you to take a moment and just think of such a situation in your life. It could have been recently, it could have been a long time ago, where you were involved in that. And just close your eyes and just take yourself back to that situation where you were completely involved in what you were doing, weren't thinking about anything else. Kind of forget about yourself. And if you could, you would just spend hours and hours focused on this one thing. And just look at it, look at the details, what was going on, what were you involved in? And then just going a bit deeper, just ask yourself, like, what did that feel like? What did it feel like in your body? What did it feel like in your mind? And then you can ask yourself, like, why is it that you were able to be so connected to this particular task? What is it about this task that you feel so connected to it? And now I want you to think of a different scenario. I want you to think of a situation where you were really trying to connect to a task or to something you were studying, and you just couldn't get connected. You were thinking about other things. You were going to the fridge, you're looking on your phone. How did that feel? You really wanted to do it, but you just couldn't. Or maybe you didn't really want to, but it was just hard. What does that feel? What did that feel like in your body? What did that feel like in your mind? And what was it about that task that made it difficult for you to be engaged, to spend time, to get connected? Okay, and then bring your attention back to where we are here. You can open your eyes. And I'd like people to share, first of all, what was the first experience for you? What happened? Miriam, would you like to share with us? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, of all things, I was drawn to my experience of being in the water, of actually doing water aerobics, which I do a couple of times a week, and the fact that I'm drawn to being in the element of water. It's like it's beyond description what it means to me, just being in water and just feeling the sense of weightlessness, a sense of the coolness of it, the fluidity, the reflections, the colors, the movement, everything about it is totally kind of mesmerizing, and I actually completely lose track of time. It's a timeless space, and yeah, it's and it just makes me. It made me feel the quality of that desire, or that love, that push, that deep something that draws me to it. And it's yeah, it doesn't really matter whether the water's cold or warm or what it is. It helps if it's a bit warmer, but it's the experience of being in water, I think, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Wow. It's so fascinating. I thought for sure you would talk about art, because you're an artist.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to me that you speak about something that's so physical, and that's also beautiful.
Yeah, that was my feeling, my experience. Thank you. It was nice.
Thank you for
going
sharing.
back there.
Yeah. Would somebody else like to share?
I could share if you want.
Sure, Malcolm.
I couldn't really focus on one thing only, because none of them were like that, like profoundly, I'm losing myself. So I did a mixture of three. I hope that was all right.
Yeah.
I started out kind of, well, learning, like trying to focus on Shara Yichud. Kind of, I was thinking of like, oh, I'm really like, by focusing, I'm kind of losing myself and going into this, what it's saying. The other thing was doing art, like, but there I'm not really losing myself. I'm not in that place. Like, I'm like directing it. And then the third one was, I was once, I went to the park and I saw sunset, and the breeze was the exact right temperature, and I felt like my soul leaving my body. So I feel like I was put like, what was in common between these three things? And it's sort of like I'm allowing space. I was just putting myself aside and allowing space for something. That's all.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. It's an interesting question that you asked, like what was the connection between those three things that came up for you? And it is kind of creating that space of connection, of an ayin, of being mufshat of other thoughts and other things. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's go to the second experience where it was difficult to connect. Who had a good experience with that? somebody wants to, yeah, Sarah. And then Cody.
Yeah. I have something I have to take care on, something big that I have to take care on. And in contrast to the other two examples that I had that I was completely immersed in, this is something that you have to inquire, you have to find out, you have to speak, you have to, and it's like a little bit overwhelming. So here is where I'm less immersed because it's not, I'm lacking the knowledge to the topic, etc.
Right. And what is
I don't know if I'm
feeling?
answering your question, but
No. It's just to get into that space of feeling it, of experiencing it.
yeah, of not knowing and what is next. Okay, so you have a ktsehut, which means like an end of a thread. Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with this. It's
Right.
yeah. So this is an answer to the second one. But hopefully one day I'm going to say, oh, I found the way. I'm completely immersed. It's getting there.
Right.
I want to ask you.
So you feel, yeah,
Can you
I
allow-
just wanted to ask Sarah. Yes, Sarah. So you feel that the competence gives you more of that leverage to stay in that space of Daas in a way, like what?
Competence, but not only. There were two examples that I thought where I did stay. One is tremendous amount of joy that kept me in that completely focused. And the other one was the value behind what I was doing plus competence.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question because that's important to notice. Like, what is the difference between the two? And here you're talking about that you get pleasure out of it, and as well as, just feeling competent. But it's that pleasure aspect which is also
And
important.
value. It has had a tremendous value behind it. Yeah.
What does value translate as in our language, Mila? I mean, pleasure would be the oneg, but what is the value?
I guess chashivus, you know,
How about
chashivus, the importance, the matter of importance.
How about ikar? Ikar. The
Eris.
ikar. The ikar.
I think Gitti wanted to share something, Gitti.
Yeah, I wanted to put in a request. I mean, as I see it, anything that anyone shares, I think that we're immersed in is because we're getting tremendous tainug. And the tainug is defining the whole thing. It's like taking over the thing. And I'm listening to the people. I feel like you're taking us on an outing to the ice cream shop. I thought, can you give each one 2 minutes to share, if anybody else, to give everyone a chance to express what they thought of? Because I don't know, I'm personally having time listening to everybody's ideas. I have my own also, but I think it's wonderful for us, if you thought of things, to give voice to it. How much time do we have in life to give voice to Tainug? Here's an opportunity, a golden opportunity.
Sure, let's try it. Let's go for it.
Shoshana.
Hi.
Hi, Shoshana.
Hi, good morning. The example that came to mind was the one that came when we went the first round. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay. And it was interesting to me because it was it's writing songs. But it was writing a specific song. And all my songs are so deeply personal that what I got thinking on, well, why this song? The song that I had mentioned before that had nothing to do with my life. I mean, it was an experience with a woman in 770 and deeply lonely and old and alone. And I would later find out, she was a Holocaust survivor and the whole thing. But when I was writing the verses, I was putting myself so inside. Well, to say, if I have 2 minutes, I'll say it quickly. It was someone who would actually be aggressive, maybe mean to people or myself. And I was so in shock and so in judgment. And well, when I grow old, I hope that I would never be like that. That's what the things I was new to crowd. These are the things I was thinking. I lacked the maturity and compassion. But then later I saw her in my friend's home and they were taking care of her. And I found out her life story, and she'd lost her whole family, and how Rabbi Teitelbaum had told Rabbi Lerman take care of her and make sure Kaddish, all these things about this woman. And then I found out how she lived alone, and she would sit at the window, and this is what she would go to the window and count the cars on Easter Parkway at the light. That is how she spent her time, 770 in there. And then I asked Mrs. Klein, you know anything else about her? She would feed the pigeons. And anyway, I saw her towards the end of her life, and our eyes connected, and we realized who each other was. I was always, hello, I never said anything bad. It was this deep connection. And then then I realized how, this the pain she had, and I was just flooded with this emotion. And then she passed, and I so yearned to go to her Levi that was going to be passing 770 and going to Israel. But it was at a certain time, and I was teaching at that time. But I remember getting off the bus. I'm an hour and a half late, and I learned in class, a woman shouldn't run in the street. So I was taking the biggest strides in the world, as if maybe I can still get there, even though I'm an hour and maybe 40 minutes late. And just as I get to Kingston, the car passes her car, and I follow it, down almost to Albany, and I sit on a bench, and I just burst into tears. And I knew I'm going to write, I knew I would write a song about that one day. And it took years to just grow inside of me, all these feelings. And so here's the point. When I went to write it and it was all flowing out, I literally put myself so inside of her world and her life that it just, was coming out of somewhere else. So I felt I lost myself. I felt, yes, I had my ratzon that I wanted to, bring out so many things. And I mean, it was different than another song, because I can't say I'd lose myself in a song. I'd say, well, what does that mean to me if I'm running a song based on a sikha or something? I would always, I don't know, when yourself is so in it, it's very different than when you're feeling another. So that's what I've sort of realized today.
Wow, Chush, that's a lot of emotion that came up.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And I remember trying to recount the lyrics after the first time that song came up, because I'd forgotten all about it. It's not something I ever played very much. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Cody, I know that you wanted to say something before you left. You were going to talk about the experience that wasn't connecting, I think. It wasn't a Daas experience.
Well, I could talk about that too. But
Okay.
what I wanted to say is the connection, the concentrating, the that. To my surprise, I was working at the worksheet about what is Chush, and I had something I knew, and when I was describing the Chush, I had something in mind. But when it came to describe a connection with something else came up. It was my work in translation. Sometimes I am involved in translating from one language to another, evidently. And my desire to have the perfect idea transmitted in the most simplest way and most clear, so that nothing gets lost, is my love for communication. Sometimes I am listening a conversation between two people, and I see that it is a monologue. They are not communicating. They're just speaking. there is no desire or there is no feeling where the other person is that she is what she's receiving or not. So that is what came to mind about translating, is deeply, deeply, deeply concentrating in and getting lost in that desire to convey the idea in the clearest way. And that's what came to mind.
So that's also very powerful, that where you talk about that it's the desire, the ratzon to communicate, that really creates the Daas for you. Like there's something that's giving fuel to the experience. There's something that's underneath it. There's the root of the Daas, in a sense. You describe it really perfectly. Okay. Okay, you know, what is really beautiful here, and Giti, I think this is what you were touching on. When we ask everybody to describe it, they're really talking about something very deep about themselves. You know, you get to know a person deeply, like what is something that matters to you, that you connected to. And there's something about the neshama that comes out in the description.
Right, and it's very enriching to hear all these different examples.
Right. But I think that what we're going to do is let's go to the text, look at the text, go out of our experience into the words. And when we come back out, we can, if we have time, we can go and ask, you know, everybody else to share. How does that sound?
I may leave later, but yeah, sounds good.
Okay, because we just want to make sure that we get through the text as well. Okay, so Giti, you're the one who's
and I have a question on one of the words.
Yeah, the question on what?
On one of the words bahem, when we get to it in about the second line.
Very good question. Okay. So, okay, we are on page 298. This is the paragraph beginning. Ach bechinas hagimel hu bechinas hadas. Let me see if I can. So Giti, do you want to read and translate?
Okay, so we're doing half the paragraph, I was told. Okay.
So yeah, let's start with the first half.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say that there's a very easy topic or title for this, and I'm going to be reading, and that is, it's Daas. Ach bechina hagimel. Bechinas hagimel. The third aspect, we did Chachma, we did Bina, and now hu bechinas hadas. Now we're doing Daas. She'enai lo bechinas haskala. It is not the forming of the idea. V'lo bechinas havana, and it's not the comprehension of the idea. Rak, it's only one thing. Bechinas hiskashlus, bahen bilvad. It's just attaching to the idea. It's a connection, a bond from the Lashon Kesher. V'yuban. Okay, so now that established, now he's going to give us an example, but it's so funny that I see the word V'yuban says, okay, now it's taking me into Bina, to a Bina experience.
One minute, Giti. I think that's where Saratova has a question, Nachon? Is that correct?
Right.
You have
one second.
Question? So, you know, just to clarify, and it's easy to miss this point, is that it says that Daas is not Haskala, which we know is a code word for what?
Chachma.
Okay, and it's not Bechinas Havana, which is a code word for?
You know, it's
Bina.
not a code word, it's the word itself.
Is for Bina. Rak bechinas hikashrus. But it doesn't just say his kashrus, which means connection. It's his kashrus behem bilvad, to them, to Chochmah and to
Whoever
Bina.
them is, right. And
What do
that's
you
not
mean?
so clear.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What's the question? It's in the two aforementioned. Haskalah, Havana.
Right. So Das is the connection to Chochmah and Bina. That's what he's saying. Is that clear, Saratova?
So that could mean Das is the connection to Chachma, and Das is the connection to Bina, or that Das is the connection to both of them together. You know, which way, just saying, it's not simple for me.
Okay.
So here
that's
we're not talking
Yeah,
about Das as being a connection. It's a connection to a specific entity.
right. And now we're going to answer your next question, but you have to wait for the answer. So now
Okay.
it's a very good question and a good observation, because very often we just think, oh, Das is his kashrus. It's just connection. No, it's not just connection. It's connection in relationship to Chochmah and relationship to Bina. And we'll see sometimes it's between the two of them. It's between Chochmah and something else, between Bina and something else, but it's always related to Chochmah and Bina.
What was the next question can you just tell us what that next question was that Saratova you
So
asked?
that was her question. She wanted to know what Bahem Bilbad referred to.
Uh-huh.
Right,
And
like who are they? Bahem, them. Who are
Them
they?
is
What are
Chochmah
they?
and Bina.
Like who are, no. So I'm saying that's a rhetorical question. My question was, who are they that there's a connection to? That I don't need an answer now, but that's the question. Bahem means who are they? Like there's a connection to something. So I want to know what the something is.
Okay. Here we
Let's
go.
go for it.
Okay. V'yuvan, I will understand. Mimasha anurayim. Here's an example. We see something that we could see with our eyes, in our experience, our life experience. The vase anoshim. Two people. Shehem bale haskalos shavos. Both of them are of equal IQ, let's say, or yeah, something like that. V'afal pichein. But nevertheless, we see some different phenomena regarding each one of them. Ha'echad u'makasher es atzmai v'haskala u'v'hasaga. The first one we'll talk about, he connects himself with his seichel, with his intellectual grasp of the matter, u'v'hasaga, and in a deeper understanding. Shemaskil or masfeg, which is the same word as haskala, v'hasaga, using the verbs, that action of it, v'hainu, and now it's going to describe what the experience is like. Shehu mekavetz koyach sichloi u'machshavtoi, and mekavetz really means to contract, which means kind of he focuses his intellectual abilities and his thoughts. Sichloi u'machshavtoi u'mekavetz u'ma'aseh. He collects. I was wondering why he needed two words, what each one of them signifies, because I just know that each one means collecting. Kol chalkeihem, all parts of their, I guess, brain or body or both. Liz kasher, to connect, rak b'muskal echad bilavad, to one idea and one idea only. To what extent? At that moment, he's completely removed, not aware of all other thoughts that may be a part of his system. And moreover, he even forgets that he exists. He's completely not self-conscious. At the time. Now we're going to
Getty, if you can just stop there and just say that in your own words, what you just read, just to give it some flow.
Okay, so this person, he concentrates and focuses and condenses all his being on one idea. And I think it would be called not only parts of his brain, that nothing else is happening in his streaming in his brain, but even his body. But maybe I'm ahead of it, so I'm just suggesting it. Okay, he's concentrating everything. He's connecting to one exclusive idea. At that time, he is completely removed from any other thought, and he even forgets about himself. He's completely involved at the time.
Okay, excellent. And that was the experience that hopefully everybody had in their visualization, something like that. Okay, let's go on.
Bahabes. Now we'll talk about the second person, because we said we're talking about two different kinds of experiences. Bahabes, Eine Mekusher Klal. It could also be Makasher as an action verb, or a state. Okay. Klal. He's not at all connected or attached, Bahaskala Zeis, to this specific subject or topic in his mind, in his intellect. So while he's thinking this thought, he can also hold space in his mind for another thought. So he cannot dwell, lishos means to tarry on, for a significant amount of time on this intellectual subject the subject matter. It's something he's a concept forming in his chokmah, and take he's taking it into his bina, but nevertheless he cannot dwell on it extensively. Masha Ainke, now we'll go back to the first. You want me to stop, or you want me to go back to the first again?
Okay, carry on.
Masha Ainke, going back to the first, the first one, Yochel Lishois, Zman Rav. So now he's adding something else on top of the fact that he can focus so exclusively that nothing else enters his mind, and doesn't think about himself. But now he adds another point, that he can stay with a matter for an extensive amount of time. Behaskala, this intellectual idea, this intellectual subject, Shemevin or Masig, he has it in his haskala, in his chachma, and in his bina. How? Mitzad teikes his kashrusa, but because he has such a fierce, strong connection to this idea, to this topic. V'zehu nikra kayachadas. How is he able to do this? Because we have a faculty called Daas, etc.
Okay. Excellent.
No, not Das. Kayachadas.
A faculty.
Kayachadas.
A potential.
Don't say Das. Kayachadas.
Right. Kayachadas.
Okay. Interesting. Why do you point that out?
Because Das is a different thing from Kayachadas.
Kayach is infinite.
Okay, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm just the ability to have that connection is Kayachadas and all of its ramifications, whereas the Das is the connection. It's one thing, there's connection, and then there's my ability to have the connection.
I like your word ability. Yes, we have an ability. We don't always.
It's like bonding. In the world of psychology, we can talk about bonding, and then there's the ability to bond. They're two different things. So the ability to bond deeply with an idea is one thing. The bonding is already if you have the ability, but the ability to do it is not the same as the bonding itself.
No, and if you don't use the ability, then you didn't do it right.
Okay.
Right. So I'm saying later on we'll figure out what you need to do to develop the ability and what gives you the ability. But the fact is, don't talk to me about connection. Talk to me about do I have the ability to connect? I'm just saying it's different. Das and Das to me are different.
Are you going to question if we have the ability, or are we stating that we definitely have the ability? Or it's neither of the two. There is an ability called Das available to us.
No, Kayach hadas is the ability.
Right.
Mila, do you
No,
have,
not there's an ability called das. Kayach hadas.
can you clarify this for us, or you want to let it go?
I think the ability to connect, the ability to be deeply, the amount that I have the ability to deeply connect to something, to an idea to the exclusion of all else, et cetera, depends on, we're going to learn
Point-
soon. But
point- Yeah, like obviously, no.
Okay.
okay, to me it's not
Alright, so-
obvious.
Oh,
Okay, so I want to point out something in the actual wording at the beginning of the paragraph, where he talks about the fact that the person connects himself. Here's the Hebrew and the English. Okay, it says, Humakasher et atzmo ba'askala u'ba'hasaga shemaskil u'masig. He connects himself to the intellectual concept and the understanding. These are words that are hard to translate, but that he conceptualized and understood or grasped. So basically you have a noun and then you have a verb. Basically there's the haskala and there's maskil. Like there's the concept and then there's the verb of it, the conceptualization. And there's the hasaga and there's masig. There's the understanding and there's the grasping or the action of understanding. And then he explains what that means. This means that he focused the power of his mind and his thoughts and collected and gathered all parts of them to connect to just one concept. And this is Daas. So, you know, the first time we read this, it really jumped out at me. And I wondered, why does he have to give us these two different experiences? So, okay, now we know haskala is a code word for chokhmah. Somebody say it. And hasaga is a code word for
Bina.
bina. Maskil is a code word for chokhmah. And masig is a code word for
Bina.
bina. Okay. So what he's describing is somebody who's connected to his chokhmah and his bina, right? And that's how he's describing the das here. And then he even says, you know, it's less clear here where he says his mind and his thoughts. That could be chokhmah or bina, or it could be something more general. But here, what I want to ask you is, what we see here is the das that connects between chokhmah and bina. Now, thinking back or thinking forward, however you want to do it, where have we heard this before? What is the das called that connects specifically between chokhmah and bina?
Das Tachton.
Das Tachton connects between bina and the midot. So later in this text, we learned that there's Das Elyon and that there are two levels of Das Elyon. So what was the Das that connected between Chokhmah and Bina? Anybody remember?
Probably either mamik or hamakas hadas, one of the two.
Okay, good. So which one?
But it's going to be a guess unless I flip
No,
through
no,
the
no.
text.
No, but don't guess. Just analyze
guess.
the word ma'amik. What's ma'amik stands
Oh,
for?
okay.
Now, what is this?
Right.
Remember? And then you'll know the answer, which one connects between Chokhmah and Bina, and which one connects, and which one activates Koach HaMaskil.
Wow.
Oh, can I guess?
Omek is usually with Kessel, so it's going to the Elyon.
No, we have two terms, Amakas Hadas and Ma'amik.
I think
And we
Hamakas
have
Hadas.
two Das Elyons.
No, we don't. The truth is that, you know, nobody should be guessing. We should remember.
Mocha Sadas.
No,
All
we don't
right.
want to remember it. We want to figure it out.
No, you want to
what
remember
Tamila's
because we
saying.
learned it. We
Because
learned
ma'amik, it's a very
Ma.
important, I mean, there is a tricky
Yeah.
word. Ma'amik is a master. Mem stands for mastery, right? So which one, this ma'amik is the person who has a mastery over his koach hamaskil. He's above koach hamaskil on the level of ratzon, right? And he commands to his koach hamaskil to give chochma and bina. Okay, so he's a master. So ma'amik is an activator. Activates omek of chochma and bina. Now amaka sadas, he didn't master his koach hamaskil yet, but he can connect to his chochma and bina. Yeah.
The Hamaka Sadas like that elevator that goes up and down and connects everything, no? That chute.
Amaka sadas is a person didn't master his koach hamaskil yet, but he's able to kind of draw down more insight into his bina from chochma.
It's not
Yeah,
like
this
a
is
little
where
highway.
not yet. Yeah, higher it's already mami.
No, I said
This is the place.
highway, like it's a highway where he does that takes his thoughts.
Exactly, meaning from the iyun process, a person goes to amaka sadas. You know, from iyun, it's no longer analysis, it's more connecting. You know what I mean? That's where the difference is. When we let go of our chitzonius bina analysis, iyun, we begin there. That's like a shuttle to amaka sadas, and amaka sadas, that's already where the actual flow is taking place.
so
Can I ask you something? Why are you calling a mastery an activator, activation at mastery? Where's that from?
Because that's ma'amik. It's from the text. He says that he is ma'amik. He's activating. No, it's just easier to remember. Ma'amik, master. Just for English, you know, it just happened to be Bashgacha Pratis, just for you to remember, because these are two confusing ones, right? But if you know Hebrew grammar, you know the ma'amik, mem stands an active, and it's an active form. For example, ani lovesh, I am wearing, something. Ani malbish, I'm making somebody else wear. Right. You know, for example, I am kore, reading. Ani makri, I'm dictating for somebody.
But why is that mastery? Like, what is that giving you? That
ma'amik, maf'il, he uses that word. That ma'amik is maf'il. He's activating his chochma and bina. Somebody who is at the level that can activate upon will his koach hamaskil, that means he's on the level of mastery. What's mastery? Mastery is that I mastered that skill to such an extent, it became part of me. I'm a master of that skill. Meaning I'm not in a process of learning. I can actually now go ahead and, you know,
activate
master it. Meaning, it's like, you know, I know what it is, you know, like I with my closed eyes, I already could dance this piece of dance. With my closed eyes, I know how to create that vase, you know, or how to make that stroke, meaning I mastered that piece of information. Now it's part of my body.
So I have a question about the wording. So we had maskil goes with haskala. There's the maskil and this maskil, the haskala. We could do the same for maven and the havana. And then we have mimic and hamaka sadat. I'm making a parallel. Is there something going on here? Like, is there a pattern here of using, it's the same idea in each case?
It could be, yeah. I mean, maskil is the process. It's an active process. Haskala is a noun. Maskil is a verb. You know, now masig is a verb. Haskala is a noun. I'm sorry, hasaga is a noun. Ma'amik is a verb. Ha'amakas hadas, I guess it's a noun. It's like a state. Yeah,
So-
it is. It's a
Okay,
So-
I want
so-
to bring,
Which comes first here? It
depends
depends.
from which you're looking. If you're looking down up, exactly. If you're looking
Okay.
down up, ha'amakas hadas first, then ma'amik. If you're looking up down, there is ma'amik, and then ha'amakas hadas. Because
So-
remember later on when he talks about das and the details, he says that even for the Rav Mashpia, he first gets to the ma'amik. That's more general
Right.
idea of chokhmah and bina. But when he wants already the details, he goes into ha'amakas hadas.
So in this case, so mamik and ha'amakas hadas differs from the words, the way I see it, maskil or mathik, because here you have an up-down or bottom-up differentiation, whereas maskil and haskell, those words don't have that whole aspect.
No, they don't. You're right. Those are just, the difference between a verb and a noun.
Right.
okay, so I want to bring it back to just simply what it is that we're trying to understand here. So everybody sees this image, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay, because sometimes that I'm not sure. So what I'm trying to say to you is that right here in paragraph 3, he was describing to us ha'amakas hadas without naming it. And then only later in paragraphs 9, 10, and 11, he then unpacked it and gave us more details. So now when we're learning it again, we don't have to experience this just in a linear way. We can begin to see the whole picture and connect paragraph 3 to paragraph 9, 10, and 11. Because we don't have to, he was just slowly introducing us to ideas. So this task that he's describing is ha'amakas hadas. And as Mila was saying, if you are the mashpia, then you go, ha'amakas hadas takes you from chokhmah to bina. But if you the makabel, ha'amakas hadas will take you from bina to chokhmah. So it depends if you're going from the perspective of the mashpia, which is up down, or the makabel, which is down up, as it were. Okay, so
There's something else over here that I didn't do justice to it in the translation enough. The very first word, ach, because for 2 lines down, he does say bilvad only. He says not this, it's only this. And he actually stopped the whole paragraph with the word ach. That what is it telling us? We're saying it's only das. Yeah, okay.
No, he says, but, ach is also but. But, b'chinas ha'gimel, u'b'chinas hadas. Why he makes that distinction is because chokhmah and bina are very different than das. Because chokhmah and bina is hispashtus of the thing. He's later on going to explain that. But das is something different. So by him interjecting that word ach, but, meaning, what chokhmah and bina is? Chokhmah and bina is perception. Das is the thing itself. It's connecting to the essence of the thing. You see, it's very different. You see, it's like
I feel
very
like
different because it's like my interpretation of reality or the reality itself. It's 2 separate things, right? It's like chokhmah and bina, it's within my keli of my brain, is my right brain and my left brain. Now, who knows what kind of circuitry I have there? Who knows what my birth experience was? Who knows what my schooling was? Meaning this is all my keli, the way my keli perceive things. That's going to be limitation of my keli right there from birth. Okay, what my genetics are, what my parents are thinkers or not. What were they thinking when they were conceiving me? What my mother ate throughout the pregnancy. What was she thinking about it? Okay, how the birth went on. Was I nursed or was I bottle fed? Who was holding me? You know, what kind of surrounding and everything else, what was going on around me. That's all create neural pathways in my right or left brain. But Daas is something different. Daas is the thing itself, is the atzem hadavar, not my perception of things. Because my chachma and my bina are going to be greatly affected by everything else what I just mentioned up until now, but not Daas. Daas is something different. Daas is the truth, the objective truth, not the subjective perception of my brain and based on my experiences.
Could we say that Daas, based on the visualization that we did, that Daas is more like an experience, whereas Chochmah and Bina are more conceptual. You know, there's concept and there's understanding. And when he says his kashrut, it's like there's something that is, I mean, he does say that it's in the third brain, so you can't say it's not a brain function, but it's a different kind of brain function. It's more even experiential.
Yeah, I mean, based on just this paragraph, yes. But
Okay.
But what later on he's going to explain about Daas, you know, in the further paragraphs, when he's going to describe the Omeg, the Rochav, and, you know, the Orach of Daas, we see that he is, you know, making that distinction that Daas is not Haskala, not Hasaga, but his kashrus to the thing itself. Meaning, when I have, for example, my child, okay? I might have a vision and I might have my understanding of that particular thing, right? But then there is Daas. Daas is my connection to the thing itself. So that's meaning not based on my perception. You see, that's the, you know, the key word here. Meaning Daas allows us to transcend our own limited perception of that thing. And that's why Daas is essential in relationship, in anything. It's like Daas is like the glue of any two entities, right? Unless we want to be in that, I guess, essentially that's what autism is when I lack Daas, is when I'm unable to transcend my own understanding of things. Do you know what I mean? Like it's autistic. We see that in autistic children, there's a lack of mirroring neurons in the brain. It's when they stuck in their own how they see things. You know what I mean? Like they're not able to transcend, that they're able to connect to the outside world beyond the understanding. That's why even in a very high functioning autism, which is Asperger's, right? They're highly intellectual, beyond capacity of any other person's, and yet they lack that attachment, that connection to the outside world. The same way, meaning the attachment is intellectual, meaning when you train these kids, you teach them how to be appropriate. You teach them how to respond when this and this situations took place. So meaning everything goes processed through the brain and remembered as a behavior versus a connection.
Mila,
Yeah.
I see Bina, Chochmah and Bina as tools and Da'at as the work.
Can you say that again? You see Chochmah and Bina as
Tools, and Da'at
okay.
as the work.
No, Bina also works without Daas, pretty much. She could work without Daas. They know those people who are very...
No, the work to be done with the Bina and Da'at.
I don't think I have clarity of what you're saying.
Because Daas has in it, seems to me, more an element of choice.
Mila, what I would like to do is go and have a look at how he describes Daas later. And so we can have a little bit more clarity. So in paragraph 9, I'm just using my English summaries. He says here, Daas means to focus the power of one's mind and thought on one particular concept. Okay, so he already said that in paragraph 3. Now this...
It's so interesting. I just want to interject a little bit.
Yeah.
About the experience. I was doing my mental rehearsal today, and after taking a very long break, I just noticed it was very interesting because I became aware, I would say for the first time, in a not judgmental way, okay, of an ability of my mind to carry parallel realities in my thoughts at the same time. It was amazing. I was listening to the recording of the mental rehearsal, and at the same time, I was already envisioning of how different my next course is going to be simultaneously as I'm listening to this recording. And it was so funny because there was part of me that was really focused, co-focused, on what I was listening to because I was doing the exercises. You understand? In the recording. And at the same time, I had this like vision, about different things that I want to change about the course. And at one point, there was a part of me, it was like, Mila, you have to stop. That's not Daas. You are just doing exactly the opposite. And what I appreciated that it wasn't like, scolding myself, like, oh, here you go again. You're all over the place. You're thinking about two things at the same time. But it was just like this cool awareness. It was like, can you imagine? This is what's happening. You're literally doing two things at the same time. And it was really interesting to actually notice that happening in your brain, like this two cranes that, going simultaneously. And I guess that's what the Daas is like, no, when it's a total focus into one thing. And that only could be possible, for me at least, when I'm focusing on now, when there is no time. That's the residue of Daas is where time disappears. Because why am I having this second thought simultaneously, and why my brain allows that second thought simultaneously to happen is because I'm thinking about the future. How am I going to teach it differently this coming round? You understand? And that's already, I'm not now, meaning I cannot do the work of now fully what I allocated those, half an hour, and I woke up extra early today to do this. And if I'm focusing on something beyond, now, whatever that might be, and it doesn't matter what that is.
Right.
That's what Daas is. Daas is like you're not allowing anything else to interject into whatever else you're involved in. And that's when we have the totality of that experience. That's when we get immersed in the experience, because there's nothing in the past and nothing in the future that exists unless but that experience.
But
That's why we forget even about ourselves. That's another key word, right? This is the three things that happen when a person is in a state of Daas, is that he is totally focused. There's no other thoughts. Okay, he forgets about time because he is in now. Okay, there's no future, there's no past, there's no time, basically. He's fully there, he forgets about time. And he also forgets about himself, because all what we know about ourselves is about the physicality of us, like I'm hungry, I'm hot, I'm cold, what am I going to do next? Well, the animal self-awareness, the way we perceive ourselves, is also melts when we are in that experience, because the other, whatever that thing is we are experiencing in, that becomes our focal point. And we forget about ourselves. And that's the beauty of it, because The world through our own lenses is exceptionally boring. We know that already. That's why the state of Daas is so captivating, because we go beyond our own self-perception. We just, yeah, and that's why people are drawn to having Daas and want to have more of it, because that's where Oneg is. Oneg is when we transcend our limited self and we experiencing something greater than who we are.
Wow. That's really beautiful. The idea that, I think that explains a lot, that you're in total present time. And when you're in that present time, that's where something quite magical happens. That's the Daas.
Right.
So I'm going to go back here because he says something really beautiful as well. Thank you, Mila. I think that was so clarifying. He says here, he quotes the Baal Shem Tov, wherever one's thoughts are, that is where one is fully invested. In the Hebrew, b'makom oh gosh. That gets me.
I know, it's one of those double shvas, right?
So, shel adam hu melubash hu kulo sham. He's enclosed. He's like literally enclosed in, you're totally there. And this is what you were talking about earlier, Mila. Through Daas, the person connects the entire essence of his being to the concept he is thinking about. Kol atzmut nafsho. And that's very intense, to think that when we are in that state of Daas, we are connecting our neshama to that thing. And so on the one hand, it's very profound. On the other hand, it's also, you have to think twice about what you want to connect yourself to.
Exactly. And this is the beautiful thing is, where are we investing our koiches into?
Right.
That's it. It's just, what are we investing into it? And
Mila.
interestingly, that Hayom Yom is about this with these women who are investing in screwing up their husbands. They are able to activate the Koach HaMaskil, which Chachamim know is an exceptionally profound thing that every Jew possesses, to come up with strategies that they themselves are going to be struggling with, because they don't have that ratzon to screw up anybody. You understand? So they could come up with a greater than Chachamim's ideas into how, to do whatever whatever they connected so deeply. And the Rebbe actually says about the Hisbonenus. He brings it about the Hisbonenus. About Hisbonenus ba'amakas hadas. These are the words. You saw that? Do you know which Hayom Yom I'm referring to?
Mila, can I ask you something? When you were doing that, you said you had two different tracks in your mind at the same time. I'm thinking maybe your present moment was concerned with the future, so it really wasn't such a contradiction. No?
Your present moment cannot be concerned about your future.
Yeah, it can.
Exactly
You could be trying to draw the future into the present. Why not?
No. I'll tell you what it is. This is not a deep thinking. It's a shallow thinking. It's a shallow thinking where we think that we could multitask. Some things we cannot multitask. And this is the curse of our generation, is multitasking, where we forget about depth. We are in a shallow ground where I could catch this fish and that fish at the same time, and I could pick up my phone and I could cook and I could do all these things. This is really activating a certain brain levels that are not deep. They're not deep. Nobody created phenomenal peace through multitasking. Nothing. You multitask. These are very shallow. There's nothing, no creativity there. You're surviving. You are navigating different parts of your brain, and you're moving from one side to the next. And you're doing all these amazing things all at once, which is great, beautiful. Okay, but anything grandiose, anything deep happens dafka when we are in omek, dafka when we are deeply connected in that, I would call expansive moment of das.
And
That's
maybe you were
where
bored with the river of change. Maybe you were actually bored, and that's why you were doing this. Maybe you wanted something more.
It's true, but then there has to be allocated time for that. But why dafka when you are concentrating on whatever else you want to change, whatever paradigms you want to switch? Why are you thinking about how you're going to be teaching that? That's be in a moment. This is what you're correcting, your situation. So be there. Why are you interjecting that second thought? And that's on the contrary, that's a distraction because you are in a neither place. For example, I'll tell you, there are some people who come in is like, you're not fully, it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. There are people who are in a relationship, but yet already have a exit strategy. It's like, that means you're not fully in. Does that make sense? It's like a marriage. It's like you can't really invest in your marriage if a person thinking of getting divorced. It's like, not that divorce is not an option. Divorce is always an option. That's the big difference between, Christianity and, Judaism, because like that's for sure. But you cannot invest in your marriage if you're thinking about stepping out. It's like, that's exactly what it is. It's like, it's with anything. That's why Daas is connected to marriage, right? The first time in Tanya, in Chumash, it talks about Vayida Hashem, what's the Vayida Adam as Chava, right? Daas brought up in a relationship specifically because we see that in a relationship more than in any other place. It's like when you invest in a particular project, you can't be thinking simultaneously about another project. That's not Das, meaning you're not invested. Like there is a thing where because there's an infinite possibilities of things to happen. And when we choose one way of thinking, right? We could have married, 10 other guys, 20 other guys, right? But then we choose one guy and we marry him. That's it. What do we do after that? We closed after we made that decision, we close all other doors, all other possibilities. Only then we can really invest in that relationship. Because if I have one door still open, I'm not there. I'm not fully present in that relationship. Well, can I step out? For sure. Nobody's holding me. But if I want this to grow, I have to close that door. So the same thing is with, with any of the spiritual avoda, is that when I'm investing in learning this particular concept, I have to close all other doors and lower the noise of all other things and focus on this thing. Yeah, and I think artists would, probably support what I'm talking about. I don't think they could actually, do a piece of work, when they're in the kitchen, with kids are running around, they're answering phone calls, and they're just holding a brush and also painting a masterpiece. It just doesn't happen, right? They usually probably seclude themselves, they go somewhere, I don't know, on a retreat, or they have a basement door that nobody knows the code into, and they have to come into this, absolute space of, disconnect from the world. And they have to, kind of come into this mode of painting, a mode of doing whatever art they're doing. And it could take weeks until they get into that mode. And when they get into that mode, they can't get out of that mode. That's why all creative people, the world perceives as weirdos, that they're just not like everybody else. And they never rich. Did you ever notice that big painters during the lifetime, they were never rich? Why? Because they can't put the work on a production. They can say every week, I'm going to 5 o'clock Friday, I'm going to bring you a painting, because that painting could take them 2 years to do. You know, they draw something and they don't like it. They scribble over it, and they draw something else and they don't like it, and they draw something else. And everybody else says, oh, no, don't touch it. It's amazing. It's like, no, it's not amazing. And they do it again and again and again and again until, oh, and then everybody else looking at it, they're oblivious. It looks exactly like the other one. And then like, no, you see this little strokes here. This is totally different thing. And everybody else is like, you're a widow. It's not. You're losing your money. You know, you can't make money like this, right? But they can't. They can't. It's because it's not about money. It's about the experience. It's about expressing themselves in whatever that medium they're expressing themselves. And that's why they never get rich. No composers. They don't. The maximum music people at least could go and play on chasanas, you know, the music that they compose. What artists do, they can't. That's it. That piece that took them 3 years to draw, to paint, that's it. That's the masterpiece. But yeah, they had to come in and out of that flow, right? Of that state, that creative state. And that's what Daas is. It's usually doesn't happen when we multitask.
And in a way, what you're describing is something that perhaps doesn't happen that often, unless you are an artist who secludes himself, that we get so distracted by so many things. And what we're missing is really the connection to the thing itself. We really miss in our fast-paced world the experience of the essence of the thing. We're getting little bits and pieces of everything, and really we tend to get not too much of anything as a result.
And I think that's what Sarah said, that in a note, right, that it's connected to Tsar. Das is connected to Tsar, for sure. Because when you have it, you cannot have enough of it. But when you don't have it, but you know what you have, and you can get into that door, you're frustrated. You feel Tsar. The life is not life anymore.
I would like to add another point about Yosef Dat, Yosef Machov. I think if we could think of, let's say, the Itkashrut of Hasidim to a Rebbe, yeah? So people that were very, very, very connected, for example, to the Friedecker Rebbe, the pain was so great. I mean, they had the dad, they had the Itkashrut, and Bichlal, I can't speak about Hasidim. I'm thinking when we are connected to something, and when it's painful.
100%. It's also because Das allows us to experience things that are greater than us. Okay. So if this comes with joy, there's always, the pain grows with it. The sensitivity level grows so much more. So the joy also has a high amount, amplitude, and the opposite of joy as well. So yeah.
Absolutely.
But the beauty of it is that Das creates that sensitivity. And the worst case scenario that could happen is Timtum Hamoach or Timtum Alev, when we get desensitized, where we don't feel no pain nor joy.
Yeah.
And we don't have depth, nothing. We become numb. That's more painful than actually experiencing a pain. At least, a person has a live heart. When you experience pain, that means you're alive. So yeah, Das definitely adds vitality into life. A little like, a spice.
Seems like, I might be wrong, but it seems like some people want to protect themselves from pain, and that's why they do not bond for that reason, because they're sensitive and they know what a depth of pain would mean. Yeah. So
that's the reason the Holocaust survivors, remember, they couldn't have kids. They didn't want to have kids because of that bonding, issue that where, they lost dear people. And there were many Holocaust survivors didn't want to get married. And there are many encounters of the Rebbe actually encouraging many Holocaust survivors to actually get married and have kids.
Elie Wiesel is an example.
Yeah.
But now you're talking about people bonding as opposed to Haskalah bonding. Or
It's all the same. You'll be surprised. People who know how to connect, they activate the external, meaning something, it's the same mechanism. It's stepping out of your own and connecting to others. So the same thing is with Chochmah and Bina, Makasadas. The level of Chochmah and Bina beyond Daas is how I perceive. Daas allows us to perceive truth beyond me, beyond my perception. You see, it's very similar. It's like I'm not self-centered. This is how I understand it. No, I'm reaching out beyond my own understanding and trying to connect to the thing itself. So that's where, the Das is a kavem tzoi, is the middle line that allows us to go beyond self, both in relationships and in any deep inner work. Is the same mechanism.
What about people who experience pain but not joy?
Probably they are more tend to be by gvuris. That's a left line. That doesn't mean they can experience, is that they would need to go deeper to experience joy. Meaning beyond their natural inclinations, because we all have our natural inclinations depending which kav we go through. That's like yesterday's Shabbos Tanya. You did the chelik of Tanya where the Rebbe talks about the natural inclinations of people, that some people are from Midas HaGvura and some people are more from Midas HaChesed, and therefore how they interact with Torah mitzvahs will change. But then there's higher reality, that when we access that, we're able to transcend our own limitations one way or the other. And that actually comes from the middle line through Das. Well, Tiferes is a result of Das, is that balance. Das is balance. That's why crazy people are called Bli Das, right? That they don't have Das, they don't have that balance. They go extremes. That's why Das is health, is ultimate mental health.
I'm very confused. I thought that this paragraph is only focusing on a very focused thing, the connection to information, not feelings.
No. In only information, that's your Bina. You don't need Das for that. Go connect to AI and it's going to give you all the pratim, all the details.
So tell me if I got it wrong. Here in this paragraph, it's talking about Das. We know Das in many different ways, but here the Middle Rebbe is speaking, I think, about connection to the Chachma and the Bina of the thing. Period.
No, it's not. It's connecting the essence of your soul to Chachma and Bina.
Right.
So,
right. Not Midas here.
I want to just clarify, maybe this will clarify, because he was giving us something very derech klal, just to introduce us. Now in paragraph 11, he describes it in a little bit more detail, and maybe that will clarify. So, and if not, we'll come back to the question. So it says here, Hamakas Das, and now we're in paragraph 11. After the seichel and the understanding become revealed in Chochmah and in Bina, he bonds with them to the point that he is not able to separate his attention from them. This is Hamakas Das. In other words, he deepens his Das to connect himself to the revealed Chochmah and Bina. Okay, then Hamakas Das activates the oimek of Das to connect to Chochmah and Bina. And further, Chochmah and Bina are only expressions of the essence of the thing itself. However, by connecting to Chochmah and Bina with Hamakas Daas, he is able to bring out the essence of the concept and enclose it in many reasons and different explanations. So I think there it's talking about through the Daas that there's something in the Chochmah and Bina where they are the Hishpastut, the expression of the essence of the thing, whereas Daas is able to bring out the essence. Whereas before, the other two are only expressions. To me, it sounds like that's what you're trying to explain, Mila, that Daas somehow is connected to the essence of the thing itself. So here he continues, the above is due to the bonding of his Daas with the essence of the concept, the Etzem Haskala, and it's called Daas that connects Chochmah and Bina, as in, if there is no Daas, there's no Bina. And afterwards, so that here this is about the Mashpia. Afterwards, he's able to enclose it in many mashalim and different explanations until the concept is settled in the vessels of his mind in a completely settled manner. I'm not sure that we need to read the rest of it.
So the feeling I got from this is, in order for us to even be able to have the words from Bina, from the Haskalah, because the Haskalah is a me'ut, it doesn't have yet the words. So in order for us to even get the words to develop the Bina, you have to have the Hiskashus, you have to have the Dat. So Bina is activated by having the Hiskashus.
Oh, she disappeared. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if, in a way, what she was saying started making me think about what Sarah, the example that Sarah gave, where you were saying that you didn't feel that you had mastery of the ideas, and so it was difficult to have this Das. Whereas somehow the Das is when there is a deep connection to the information or to the experience. And when we lack that, it's hard we have to get to that point of Das. Das is not the beginning point, when it's a makas of Das. Okay. Anybody have any questions, anything further they would like to share? We're trying to really keep it to an hour and a half. So
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
So we're talking about Dat and Chochmah and Bina with concepts. We spoke also about connecting with people. But then I'm thinking, what about something that is completely secular? You're learning math, you're learning computers, you're learning completely something from Klipat Noga. So I understand Chochmah, I understand Bina. Where does that come over here?
It's everywhere, Anna. Das is my faculty inside of me. Where my koach haratzon, that's where my das will go. You understand? If my ratzon isn't to study medicine, I'm going to invest in medicine to such a point, and I'm going to work and invest and become competent and spend time and dissolve completely in it and be really in it, okay? And even feel people and feel their diseases. The great doctors, they just look at the patients, they already know what's the story with them, okay? Because they develop, the Das develops Chush. Well, Chush, Das comes from Chush. So that becomes, I would say, a very transcendental experience where something even beyond intellect comes into play, right? Because Das, there's for no reason, he brings this idea that Das comes from Chush, and a Chush is beyond intellectual grasp, right? Because the Chush is the sense. It's your, sixth sense in a way. The sensitivity. Now, if somebody wanna, you know what? War is also art. To fight is also art. To protect Eretz Israel, I mean, talk to soldiers. They could smell things. They could see things that are beyond.
So that is
People in war zone, exactly. Wherever
That
your
is a dot.
investment is it, somebody builds bridges. They could just look at the bridge and say, oh, there's a problem there. Why they know? I don't know. They just know. Meaning wherever your investment is, you will develop Daas there. There's also, let's not forget, there's Daas and Klippas as well. Not only in Klippas Nova. All the witches and, all these guys out there, they have Daas in whatever Klippa they're doing. It's like,
we sure see it now.
And, there's a famous story I like to tell my kids if I want to scare them. It's it's a very long story. I'll send you the copy of it, but it's about Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach, and 80 witches in a cave of Ashkelon. Okay, it's an interesting, entertaining story. Listen, it's in Chazal. It's a true story that took place in Eretz Israel. But yeah, I mean, what are those witches? How they could create things and do all kinds of things, using whatever koiches atuma. It comes from Daas as well. It doesn't just happen from an intellectual perception. No, they actually, activate it. And in order to activate anything in this world, you need to have Daas, even in Klippa.
Yeah, so we see it also with the situation in Israel and Iran. Why are they so capable of doing the bad that they're doing? It's also that in their
ideology and belief, for sure, to the point of Mesiras Nefesh, right? Yeah, of the Mesiras Nefesh. Yeah, but the difference is actually that's brought down. The difference is why the Mesiras Nefesh of a Jew is beyond intellect, and the Mesiras Nefesh of a Goy is not. Do you know that? It's interesting. That it's actually brought in a few Mamarim, is that for a Goy to give up his life, he has to be educated in whatever he's giving up his life for, right? I mean, you don't see a secular Muslim screaming Allahu Akbar and jumping with a bomb, right? They're usually very religious, deeply religious, Shiites. They do this. But by Yidden, you see an absolutely secular guy who eats treif, who doesn't keep any Torah mitzvahs. And when he is asked to, do something, he's ready to give up his life for Hashem. And that's not explanatory. It has no, it's beyond understanding, right? So that's where, the Pintaliyit comes out, that point of God that's within every single Jew. Now, with Goyim, it's connected to the ideology. If they are brainwashed with the ideology, they're ready to give up their life for that thing. But they're not ready to do it beyond the scope of their, expertise, so-called.
So that is their dat and Gimel Klipot Meot.
Exactly. So Gimel Klipos Tmeis, they're not connected to the essence of the neshama. By a Jew, yeah, the essence of the neshama is beyond das, beyond even das. It says lemala mitam v'das. There's a reason that expression goes is that it comes from the essence of the neshama, from the yechida of the neshama, which transcends all levels.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On similar topic. A few days ago, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday, there was a Tanya that when there is going to be Gilui HaMaor or whatever, so all the nitzotzot are going to be attracted to their source, and the negative would have nothing and it would disappear, right? So then also there was the point that there is a nitzotz of Kedusha that gives life to everything, because since Chet Adam HaRishon, everything is mixed, right? Now, would it be correct to say that what we see by the Arabs and Iranians and everything, the nitzot of kedusha that they have that enlivens them is the belief in one Hashem? Would it be correct?
That's
or
really
would we-
stretching it, Sarah. Yeah, I'll tell you what it is, because at one point in Tafshin and Beis, the Rebbe said that all the Netzitzis are already elevated. So truly, the nations are elevated. And so we can't really, you know what I'm talking about? Like they're fully elevated, all nations, all the Yidden, the whole world. I know it's hard for us to believe with everything else that's going on, especially a year ago with this whole Simchas Torah situation. How do we explain it? There is no explanation for it. I don't think there is a logical explanation al pi Torah, because the Rebbe said everything is ready, and it's not understood why Mashiach is not here. The only way to explain it is that we need to step into our power and really recognize and benefit and accept that, and that's when we're going to be benefiting from all the things that was done up until now. Because there is an element of Kabbalah Samalchus, right? There is one element when the Melech reveals himself as a king. But then it's not enough for Mashiach to reveal himself fully. It has to be Kabbalah Samalchus. What is Kabbalah Samalchus? Kabbalah Samalchus is not only accepting one individual, as a Melech. It's accepting everything that comes with it. It's accepting this era of Mashiach and our ability to affect the world, our personal world, and also the global world. It's like what we learned in Tefillah L'Moshe. I think it's a perfect example. It's like, are we really perceiving ourselves as that we have everything? We are completely self-sustained. Why? Because we are connected to the essence of God. We are essence of God. Are we really living with that perception on a day-to-day life? With Hamakas Daas and on the level of Mamig and on the level of all these grandiose ideas that we're learning? Or we tasting a little bit, we get elevated, and then we go back on our life and live our golos, you understand me? To what extent are we ready to give up this little confined perception of the world versus what it is? I think we all live in some kind of delusion, because when you really read Tafshin and Aleph, Tafshin and Beis Sichos, you're like, the Rebbe is describing a completely different world. A completely different world.
What would it
and
take
yet
to
for
give
30
it up?
years, and yet for 30 years, we are resisting to welcome it. Is that there's some kind of inner resistance to let go of Golus. No matter how sweet it is, we're still like, it's like, it really, every time I read this passage about the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim, we laugh at it, right? When we read in Chumash, come on, who doesn't laugh? When they read in Chumash, you took us out of Mitzrayim because you wanted to kill us in desert. How many times Yidden said that to Moshe Rabbeinu? Really? Like, no, come on, you really think this way? Well, they believe that. No, we want to go back to Eretz Israel because of, this, what is this, the watermelons. I mean, any sane person reading this, watermelons, and they missed the garlic and leek, like, seriously? Like, you really missed that? I mean, your babies were killed. When we read it as a piece of history, we're thinking, what was wrong with these people? Well, the question is, what is wrong with us? What is this? What is wrong with us? There is a piece of watermelon of Golos that holds me there, like my leek and my onion and my, and my garlic. There is something so tasty in Golos that keeps me. It's like, no, I cannot let go of my watermelon, and my kishuim. It's like, I have to hold on to this amazing taste. And like, I'm not going to allow myself to taste the man. After, Hashem is like feeding us with man, and we're like, no, I'm sorry. We want this watermelon. So I think we're all going through this, and this, that's why the Rebbe connects. The only thing that's left is to be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach. And I'm thinking, what is Mekabel Pnei Mashiach? There's so many Mashiachistim out there screaming Yechi. Are we really lacking this? No, we're not lacking accepting an individual. I think what we are lacking is accepting the era, accepting what comes with that individual, what it is to live Mashiach. That's, I think, we are like still holding on to our watermelons.
So, Mila, I'm going to stop recording now. Okay. Unless I should continue.
No, we're all good. I think we pretty much.
Are we off topic or are we on topic? Is this Daas that we're not stepping into a new reality? Is it connected?
I think so, because if we connected to it, if we're truly connected to the words of the Rebbe, or we are, simultaneously carrying over the Golus thought process, and we kind of study Tafshin and Beis Siches, and we parallel realities. We kind of go in and out, and we think we can do both. I think that's what, keep happening. To me, at least. I cannot speak for others. But that's, kind of what's happening by me. It's like, even when you're sitting and doing your mental rehearsals, you're still keeping the parallel reality. How are you going to change your course? Who cares about your course?
Mila, what this reminds me of what you're saying about the soldiers where they are in Gaza. They